Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of different topics, and another where we dive into tons of great books and stories. My name is Kevin O'Keefe. So today, okay, let's learn and get back to reading. Yes, here we are today. We're taking a story from the book Every Living Thing by Cynthia Rylant. This is the third story of a series of stories that we will dive into, analyze, talk about. There's so much packed into these little stories. Best moment, best character, worst character. Sometimes there's only just one character, but if you've been listening, this will be, like I said, our third story. We read Stray, and we also read A Bad Road for Cats. So before you continue listening here, go out, buy the book. Again, Every Living Thing, stories by Cynthia Rylant, decorations by S.D. Schindler. Every story revolves around a particular pet or an animal that can change the lives of their humans, their owners. So I will quote a couple times from the stories, but this is mostly commentary. Again, listen, the best part about reading a book, in this case a short story, is that you can talk about it, listen to other people's opinions, thoughts, concerns, disagreements that you have. It's like our own virtual book club, podcast book club, and that's what these episodes are all about. Listen to this. Number one, it's a picture of a dog. This is the animal that makes a difference in the life of this particular human being. And you're looking at the picture of a dog, and it looks like Lassie. Those of you that are old enough as I am, you know Lassie is a border collie. And it's not Lassie, but it's the collie. Listen to the opening paragraph. So much of this book we will be comparing and contrasting, but no ifs, ands, or buts. Talk about grabbing the reader. Quote, her name was Miss Fela Cutchinson, and she used to be a school teacher. Miss Cutchinson had gotten old and had retired from teaching fourth grade, so now she simply sat on her porch and considered things. She considered moving to Florida. She considered joining a club for old people and learning to play cards. She considered dying, unquote. Are you kidding me? Again, so much of what I teach in terms of writing, I call it good repeating words. She considered. And you just don't expect this. But of course, you've got to keep reading. And what does Cynthia, the author, Cynthia Rylant, write next? Next paragraph. Finally, she just got a dog. Talk about changing your life. Just get a dog, right? Things don't work out. Get a dog. And of course, the author goes into the story, and the dog is old. She too was retired. A retired collie. The author goes into the fact that, it used to be with a family with kids running around, but this family had moved to France, and now they needed someone to take care of the dog. They couldn't bring him to France, so they gave her, quote, they gave her to Miss Cutchinson. Now, Miss Cutchinson, the name of the dog was Princess. But, of course, an old lady, she basically said, nah, it can't be Princess. So she renamed her Velma. And it took a while for good old Princess to realize her name was now Velma. In time, as the author writes, she got used to her new name. I mean, this story is 6 pages, okay? Just remember this, 6 pages. So the author goes into the fact that now they are living together. They're getting used to their new life. Velma, even though she's a dog and she's getting older too, she's getting used to Miss Cutchinson's slow pace instead of the as the author writes, the romping of three children, and had to get used to her dry dog food. But she did not have an experience of, as the author writes, perking coffee, sizzling bacon, hot biscuits. Never experienced the smells of that type of breakfast. Yes, Miss Cutchison loved making breakfast. This was her routine, and the dog was not used to this. He was just used to the kids having cold cereal. So even though the dog's eating the dry dog food, she is in love with these new scents. Velma also had to get used to the snoring, Miss Cutchison's snoring, and certainly Miss Cutchison, had to get used to the walking, the new kind of life that she had led, but she was just considering things before. Now I know it to be true. We have a dog. We're empty nesters, myself and Mrs. O'Keefe, and we have Jasper, who's now going to be 3 years old this summer. Hey, I am so much healthier. I live a fulfilled life. I go to bed early. I get up early. I have my 8 hours of sleep because we go with what our dog goes with. And yes, he drives us crazy, but I can relate so much of what Miss Cutchison's going through here. She lives her life around this dog. And what they talk about here is that, yes, they have their routines and it's simple, but they seem to both like it. They're set in their ways. And in fact, the walks are just up and down the block. But this is the turning point. And what's so amazing about this is it's so simple, but you know it when you're reading it. Again, of course, it's only 6 pages, and here we are on page 4. And the author writes, quote, "Why Miss Cutchison decided one day to walk Velma a few blocks farther and to the west is a puzzle," unquote. You know this is going to be a big moment, and it is. Why? Because as they walked around, as the author writes, they hear, quote, "a sound like a million tiny buzzsaws floating into the air." As they get closer, the sound turns into, quote, "something like 100 bells pealing," unquote. And then, what is it that they see? That next block, they saw a school playground. Just to stop here a moment, as we led up to this, what is Miss Cutchison doing on her days when she's just considering things? She laughs out loud to nobody but Velma. Why? She's thinking about her kids that she had all these years. 43 years teaching. And of course, you have that many years. You have so many memories. The students have their memories of us, and they're no doubt different. The moments in time, anything, whether it's with our family, with our own children, with our friends, we all have certain memories we latch onto, we remember, but certainly school teachers, and of course I can relate. This is, my 15th year. I can think of pretty much every single class. I need help at this point, just looking at the certain students with certain years, their pictures. And yes, each student, I'll have a certain memory. And what is she doing? She's laughing out loud. And of course now, you know where this is going. Her life is going to be fulfilled. She's getting back to a school. But as the author writes, Miss Cutchison, quote, "stood very stiff a while staring, period. She didn't smile. She simply looked at the playground." So what's happening here is, who knows? But Velma, she remembers, she knows the kids, her 3 little brothers and sisters growing up in the house. Now she's seeing tons of kids. She's barking her head off. And the kids meet Miss Cutchison at the fence, and they continue now going back every time they have an opportunity. And here's the point. Right away, you know that their life has been rejuvenated, reinvigorated. They have a purpose, right? Both. And how does the story end? The author writes, quote, "In mid-October, Miss Cutchison put a pumpkin on her front porch," unquote. And when I read that out loud to my class, this is a perfect example of so much of what a lot of students have and a lot of students don't. And it goes to, in my opinion, the benefit of reading aloud, the benefit to being with your parents and sharing stories, sharing what is not on the page, being able to comprehend and know what the author is not writing, what the author is getting to, why the author is writing something. So at this point, after this experience, I said, why is she putting a pumpkin on their front porch? And unfortunately, too often, the kids are thinking literally. Now, again, I teach 7 and 8-year-old kids. But again, with maturity, with understanding, with reading, with learning every day, what's happening here? She's putting it on her porch because before she probably didn't put it. She was down. She was depressed. I mean, what was the first paragraph? Quote, she considered dying. Now she has a reason to get up in the morning, not just considering things, right? But to actually enjoy her life with her dog. And sure enough, what's she doing this for? So kids could visit her on Halloween. And of my 19 students, I only had a few that got this. But yes, so on Halloween night, what happened? She ended up getting lots of students visit. As the author writes, she handed out 56 chocolate bars. And then how does the story end? The story ends on Christmas Eve. And what happened? Young carolers, quote, came to sing in front of Miss Cutchison's house, and they were bearing gifts of dog biscuits and sweet fruit, unquote. Really nice ending. Not the best, but it's a very satisfying story. And so much of when I reflected back on this story after we went over the whole book with my class, and I said, what moments are so memorable for you? What moments do you remember? And more than a couple students pointed out that turning point in the story. Why Miss Cutchison decided one day to walk that extra block, just walk that extra block. And it's the reason we share so many different stories and we reference things. You know what? You can use that at any point in your life, in class, different pieces of writing. Why I decided to take that next step. Why I decided to turn the corner that day. So some reflections looking back on this story. I think it was brilliant that the author renamed the dog, and the two names were perfect. An old name for a dog, and it's an old name for a person, Velma. I'm sorry, it's just an old name. And of course, a young name is Princess. I thought one line that was fantastic was, going into the third page here of this story. Miss Cutchison would creak out of her bed. That line was great. But the worst metaphor, the worst comparison that the author used was, she continued, quote, like a mummy rising from its tomb. I thought that was a little bit over the top, not necessary, just didn't fit. It just didn't seem right. But again, then the next line, the author writes, Miss Cutchison, quote, then shuffled into the kitchen, straight for the coffee pot. I thought that was a great, great quote. Of all the stories in this book, not the best well-written. I've referenced that Bad Road for Cats had just tons and tons of great lines. But no question, The idea I thought about the fact that she just considered things was just so simple, yet it says so much. And it really, of all the short stories in this book, talk about grabbing the reader, that definitely is at the top of the most impactful opening paragraphs. Little things to complain about here with this story that, again, ideally, one of the questions I was asking my students with all the stories, what story needs a sequel, deserves a sequel? What story do you really want to know more about? And Miss Cutchison is not about what's going to come next, but we want to know a little bit more about her past. We have to assume that she never got married. The author never writes anything about her family, a past husband or kids. It definitely sounds like she's single. And the fact that the author alludes to the fact that she didn't know that the schoolyard was around the corner, that didn't seem logical because, again, there was no evidence in the story that she had moved. When she had retired, that she moved into a new community. So she had to have known the neighborhood. But again, these are just little things that we're picking apart in a 6-page story. Laugh out loud moment in the story I thought was funny is when the kids came to the fence to see Miss Cutchison and see the dog. The dog was excited. The kids were excited. And one after another, in rapid fire, the kids, quote, "Where's your dog? What's your dog's name? Will it bite? Do you like cats?" I mean, again, if you're a school teacher, you could relate to this. By the end of the day, 6-7 hours with being with young children, you love them, but it's like one question after another. It can just get tiring after a while. But like I said, it brought her back. It's a flashback, no doubts, and she loved it. The ending could have been a lot better, and I'm going to say this with a bunch of the stories in this book. It's almost as if she wrote so many great stories in here, she's got to fill out the rest of the book. And I know it's a subtle ending, and you're taking a lot from it, but somehow, some way, you know what? I would love it if these stories were just a few more pages, a little bit more background. In this case, you know what? Really tear my heart out and really get the emotion going with some more and different play on words. But hey, I'm here talking about this wonderful book because, like I said, you got to go out and buy it, not only from the standpoint of being able to teach great writing, but to experience great writing. Friends, thanks for staying with me on this journey, going through this story called Retired. It's the perfect title, by Cynthia Rylant in her book, Every Living Thing. Reach out to me at KEVMOK21 at gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Okay Let's Learn. We are on YouTube, Okay Let's Learn. And yes, love the reviews, love the ratings. Until next time, have fun and keep learning.